Hey, everybody. Come on up. Don't be shy. This is going to be more fireside chattish, I guess. First and foremost, my name is Ray Thompson, and I'm Director of Broadcast and Media Solutions Marketing here at Avid. And today, the next two sessions are all about monetizing content across digital platforms, which is a big challenge for everybody in the industry these days. And we have a special guest today from Minute Media. So Rich and I go back quite a ways, and Rich has a ton of experience when it comes to delivering content and monetization of content across digital properties. And that's really where he cut his teeth. And he's currently the CEO and president of Minute Media. And so I'd like you guys to put your hands together for Rich Routman.
Hello, nice to see you all. Thank you. Nice to see all of you. And thanks, Avid, for having me. So I guess just who is this guy and what is Minute Media? Maybe I get that out of the way first so that you guys think that some of the words I'll offer throughout this presentation are at least semi-credible. Minute Media is a global content and digital technology business that we started in Tel Aviv about 10 years ago. We've since scaled that business around the world. We focus on sports and lifestyle and create and distribute content in 13 languages, everything from English to Turkish to Mandarin, with offices in lots of different places. We're clearly a venture-backed company and focused on technology and media. So the company has raised in excess of $100 million over the course of 4 different rounds. We're nearing the 150 million monthly unique user range across our properties. And the business is essentially converging to the $100 million in average revenue on an ARR basis. But most importantly for the conversation today, we've made some big investments in digital video and digital video monetization over the course of the last few years. Because for us, we have big audiences all around the world, and we create high volumes of content, and we were struggling to find the return from that content that we have been building. So the investment into digital video that we made a few years ago has really started to bear fruit. And just as a proof point, we're doing almost 1 billion video streams a month on our platform. As a good example, our US sports business, there's this company called ESPN that I'm sure you guys are familiar with domestically. We do more users and more video streams than ESPN in the sports category, but most people don't know Minute Media as a whole. So hopefully we could talk about how we've gotten there, perhaps why we're investing so much into this area, and potentially some of the outcomes that you guys could put to work to the extent it makes sense for your business. Here we go. So I think these are just some of the very obvious points that we all know, but digital video spend is obviously significantly increasing. For us, we never focused on desktop, we never focused on YouTube channels, we never focused on Facebook distribution of video. We always looked at those, to be candid, and maybe we were right in some instances and wrong in others, as tactics, not long-term strategies, because at the end of the day, you don't own that audience. We've always focused on destination video. So I think the content owners as a whole, while a lot of them, at least some of our partners in local media, have been able to build large-scale audiences that read their content, and if you're the San Francisco Gate, you have a decent-sized audience, but that converting to video viewership has been very challenging for a lot of local broadcasters. I will say that it's also super confusing. And I think that unlike in the traditional broadcast space where clearly there's content creators, there's the production side, there's syndication, there's the cable networks. I mean, if you look at the digital video space, 90% of the companies on this slide I hope you've never heard of. But do you really need to have your own agency trading desk or video ad network or video SSP or branded content distribution technology, or even, do you need even half of the stuff that's on this slide? And the answer is no. You don't even need, 4%. So the digital video industry has given birth to a lot of companies that do very little over the course of the last 10 years just because there's been an explosion in spend. And I think for us, one of the things that we've taken into account is how to make this simple. What are the 1, 2, or 3 things that you may need, so that when someone inside of your company says, look at the Lumascape, this is what we need to be thinking about as an organization if we want to do video right. This is the antithesis of what you want to be thinking about if you want to do video right. So for us, it really boils down to 3 very obvious tactics, but I think that those tactics are inherently focused on technology. If you think about today in kind of just the core OVP space, the online video area, you have a lot of desktop-first online video player companies. A lot of these companies started at a point where desktop video is significantly scaling, and some of them have been unable to adapt to how you make video work on mobile web, where the lion's share of consumption is. Can you make it fast enough? Can you make it great for a 5G LTE connection here in the US? But what about a 2G connection for our 23 million users in Brazil? So I think that there's been a lot of challenges with video technology providers that were built for the past, adjusting to the mobile web convergence. I think also part of that strategy is, while a lot of people's digital video strategy is always built around YouTube and OTT, long-form content is inherently challenging to scale on mobile web. So there's now starting to be a much bigger shift into short-form content, and what's too short, what's short enough, what formats can we even utilize around monetization to the extent it goes too short. And then finally, modern monetization. A lot of the companies that we talk to have significant sales teams. And the last thing, most of the companies that we speak with all the time is, we're now going to hire another 50 people to do digital video monetization. We can't afford to hire another developer. So how do we go about driving as much scale in our digital video operation, really without having to make an additional singular hire? So for us, as a good example, we'll do in excess of 50 million in digital advertising revenues this year, and we don't have a singular person that is focused on solely responsible for video sales. So I think that there's 2 solutions that obviously are really important to us. Obviously, it's having a really great video technology solution that is super fast, that when you're talking about the mobile web, on desktop it's relatively easy. I mean, I've been doing desktop video for 20 years, and there's lots of tricks and there's lots of vendors. It's a big player at the top of the page, and for the most part, if you can't do that, that's table stakes. But when it comes to mobile web, you have less real estate. How do you integrate video into the iPhone 4 or iPhone 4S? How do you make it work so that you're not turning something away? And then the second, which we believe is the most important part, is most of the broadcasters, most of the local media organizations that we speak with are really scalable in text. Okay, they're creating tons of articles across news, finance, sport, entertainment, whatever it may be on a regular basis. But then they need to have somebody else create video that corresponds to those sections, which is the antithesis of how we approach things. So for us, especially in the local broadcast community, you have tons of video in your archive. And semantic solutions should manage how you take video into your article level experiences. So that is the most technical heavy thing I will ever say, because I'm definitely not a tech person at heart. But what this really means is, someone comes to the site, and a crawler, just like you would when you're crawling a site for keywords on search, is crawling the site. It's looking for key terms. In the case of soccer, it's looking for Messi, it's looking for Ronaldo, it's looking for Champions League. If there's not a lot of words inside that article, which inherently shorter form content is becoming more just the norm, it'll read the metadata associated with the images, and then we'll dynamically recommend what video should even be in that article. So what we're finding a lot is, there's a lot of broadcasters, a lot of publications out there that simply aren't utilizing semantic as a way to surface video. So it does not require a single additional person. It requires a singular code on the page that allows you to take all the video content in your archive and perform the best possible match onto that page. If you do that alone, you're going to increase your digital video revenues by 10x. I guess the other pieces for us is that obviously, and this is not going to be a big surprise for anybody in the room, is that formats matter. I think that we've had digital media, I would say, makes us change quite often. We were building lots of content for the iPad, which at this point, I hope you're not building specific experiences for the iPad. We were building long-form content for YouTube. We were building short-form content with subtitles for Facebook because people read, they don't necessarily watch. So I think when it comes to mobile web specifically, which is where the lion's share of digital video consumption is, the format matters, but the relevancy to the actual rest of the content on the page matters more. Right? So if I'm reading something on the Wall Street Journal about last night's presidential speech or otherwise, there is definitely something in the Wall Street Journal's archive that corresponds to that same exact piece of editorial that needs to be referenced in there. And then that's how you're driving that interaction. So I think one of the challenges we run into when it comes to commercializing video is because a lot of partners, other than the big guys, YouTube, Facebook, Amazon, have very limited amounts of supply. Right? So if you have very limited amounts of supply, you'll sell to a local broadcaster. They can get on your television station for $15, but you charge them $35 for digital video. That's a turnoff. No one wants to pay more simply because you have less supply. There have to be ways for you to aggregate on and off platform supply to make it more scalable and to be able to provide one CPM across all screens. We can explain how that works. We talked about automation. You don't need a broadcast seller and a digital video seller. There's actually ways to commercialize digital video content with actually adding a singular seller because there's tons of bidding density for that video in the open marketplace. And then finally, the right partnerships. We're finding that a lot of our local clients are starting to pool their inventory because digital video, unlike local broadcasts, is being bought nationally. And when local broadcasters get together or local producers get together and pool their inventory together, we're starting to see seven-figure deals getting traded all the time. So there is an opportunity to do the pooling of inventory, much like the local media consortium pools all the newspapers together. This is a real opportunity that's currently lacking in the marketplace. So I guess in terms of us, we're not a broadcaster. We don't have 1/10 of the content that is probably, even though this is not a super full room at this stage, I would still say that most of the people in the audience have 10x the amount of content that we have. By the end of this year, we're going to be doing 2 billion video streams a month through our platform, purely by virtue of leveraging semantic tech, by building something that works on mobile web, by having the right modern monetization tactics behind it. Our video business is growing at over 100% a year. Right? So we fully expect to be in a position next year where that number is 4 billion, just by virtue of the pent-up demand that exists in the marketplace. The only place there's more demand than supply in video today is in mobile and OTT. There's more supply than there is demand on local broadcasts. That's just a simple matter of fact these days. So we have to build supply to address where the growing demand needs of the marketplace are. And for us, it's not just building our own brands and driving viewership across the sites that we own. It's making this technology as a tool available to our partners, and that's where we're starting to see the lion's share of the growth. So I think that the biggest changes fundamentally that we've made and that we're seeing the industry make is that, when we first started our business, the first brand we built was essentially what I would make it simple for everybody in the room is the Bleacher Report for soccer. We have the biggest soccer site in the world. It has over 70 million users. We create content across all leagues and languages. And the transition from selling display, which essentially is the lowest common denominator business now, to becoming a video-centric organization is what enabled us to go from small company to big company. The investment that we made, I'm not going to mention the companies that we tried, but there's not a ton of companies in online video. We tried them all. We were spending $1.6 million a year on a SaaS license with a current OVV partner. And we realized if we took that money, not even 1.6. If we took $3 million of the capital we've invested and built it into a solution that addressed our publishing needs, this is probably going to be a solution that is more pertinent to the market right now. So for us, that's where we spent our money. That's where we built the VMS tech. That's where we understood it's not about hiring more people. It's about developing semantic solutions. And that's why we've been able to scale alongside of that. I guess for us, as we kind of look at the most interesting growth areas of the business for us, I mean, CTV is very tough. We're not a broadcaster that you're going to download our app on a Samsung device. So it's definitely an area that's super important. But we still believe there's a ton of growth in mobile web. As Google starts to shift to AMP, you're going to see even more exponential growth around AMP. I mean, while it's been around now for not a short period of time, AMP traffic is starting to dominate the lion's share of mobile web traffic, where previously all that traffic was coming from Facebook. So when Facebook essentially started to die for publishers, people pivoted to AMP, and AMP is now just becoming a big rotational phenomenon for most of the publishing community. And then I guess finally, since I'm trying to thumb through at a relatively quick speed here, while I come from the broadcast side, and when we were selling advertising deals to broadcasters, we would either sell on a demo guarantee, Nielsen being the arbitrator if we did really well or not, or if they wanted to be part of our singular primetime show, they'd have to spend a lot more, but they'd also have to pick up some of this other stuff that we couldn't sell to anybody else. So reach and frequency was a big part of the conversation. We've gotten to a point now where we can sit down with Ford. If you're doing 600 million or even 1 billion video streams a month, I have 100 million that corresponds to people who are in market for vehicles this month. I have 50 million of people for our movie clients who bought tickets to movies last month. I have another 25 million that bought J&J products because it ties into their CRM. Right? So the ability to now be smart about that inventory segmentation, which is essentially the way digital video is being bought and sold. It's not being bought and sold exclusively on reach and frequency. It's being bought and sold on performance and segmentation, because while people think the money's coming from television budgets, it's coming from television budgets, but it's also coming from display budgets that are not necessarily performing as well anymore. And those always have KPIs and goals you have to achieve on the segmentation side. So the question that I think I already answered previously is, does this require more people? So we're a 230-person company, which is not, we're not Microsoft. Our digital video team as a whole, our tech team is 4 people. Our operations team that manages over 600 million ads every single month is another 3. And we're generating the revenues I spoke about with essentially exclusively a programmatic sales team. So now you're talking about an 8-person staff generating $50 million, right? Purely being powered by technology. So for us, this is, and maybe it's not a one-size-fits-all proposition. I'm not saying that your company is going to be able to do the same exact scale with that very limited investment, but this is a tech investment. This is not necessarily a content investment. You've already made the content investment, and this is just leveraging the content in a meaningful way to drive incremental revenue. So a good case study that I thought would be pertinent to the group here is one of our partners is Hearst Local Media. If you go to, I hope there's some people in the room from Hearst, and there's millions of people that are in the audience today. But Hearst is one of our big partners. We power video consumption across all of Hearst Local Media, but we're the technology platform. Hearst produces great content across the Houston Chronicle and San Francisco Gate, and collectively has more than 40 million users on their local properties themselves. That's almost exclusively homepage and mobile web traffic. That's where it all comes from. So they were utilizing a previous desktop online video technology solution, costing them in excess of $1 million per year. Our business model to the Hearst executives was, take that cost out of your P&L and we'll give you our video technology for free, and we'll give you an $8 million plus minimum guarantee if you allow us to take over the inventory. So a $9 million swing for doing nothing. Right? One developer on their side had to integrate the semantic solution and the technology, And now we're talking for them, which, again, there's other broadcasters and other local media companies that are just as big as Hearst, a $9 million swing, or even perhaps a bigger swing as things go forward, is not an incremental add to the business, considering the local newspaper websites are not growing at 50% a year. So I guess, finally, the key takeaways, since we're quite short on time now, is for us, if content is being created all equal, which we don't agree with, but there's some content out there that clearly is above other things. Tech, in this instance, unlike broadcast, is the entirety the difference. Demand and ad source management, which I did not get into granularity around, is the key difference. It's audience segmentations, it's private marketplace deals, it's PG deals, it's open marketplace deals exclusively on Facebook through the header. There's a million things you can do technical-wise to increase the bidding density. Passing the metadata from your page into the video technology and creating that matching is just ultimately the most important thing. It's like the live read that you're doing before you go to the sports part of your local broadcast. It's tying those two things together. As you scale, audience segmentation is obviously your closest friend, because that's the area that you're going to see the highest RPM. And when you put these 4 or 5 things together, none of which include additional people, that's where you're going to unlock the value. So that's our strategy. That's how it'll come together for us. And I guess if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. But hopefully, voila.